Welcome to Tell Us Something. Every Tell Us Something event is focused on a theme. Tonight's theme is risk. Our first storyteller is Delany Wascherol. She is an avid volunteer of many Missoula nonprofits, a backpacking enthusiast, an artist, and self-identified cool girl. Please welcome Delany Wascherol.
Utah on the eve of my 18th birthday. It's early morning, but it's already sweltering outside. I've just watched my new friend jump off a cliff. I am supposed to be next. I've had to go to the bathroom about 6 times in the last half hour. Pee, that is. I am so nervous. My stomach is in my ankles. We have spent the last 48 hours naturally rigging, meaning we held large ropes, tied them around even larger boulders, and we strung it across a canyon. It took a long time, and I was with a lot of people that really, really love jumping off things. Primarily base jumpers, highliners, and the like. I'm here in Moab primarily because of my Aunt Sonia. She's a highliner by trade, meaning that she strings webbing across canyons and then walks across it, hooked to an anchor, but still very scary and very cool. And I have been with her for about the past week with these other wild outdoor enthusiasts who, like I said, really love to jump off things. And I have been offered the second jump, which is pretty perfect if you think about it, because you don't have to be first, which is scary for obvious reasons. But you don't have too much time to think about it and chicken out. But I think I still might chicken out. There's something about being a human where you're wired to not jump off things that make it really hard to actually do so. So it's a bit of a trick. But I think I'm going to do it. I've spent the last couple days getting to know this wild group of people who do this professionally. And so not only do I want to do it because it looks like a lot of fun, I also feel like I'm the one that people think won't jump, so I really want to. And as an added bonus, as I said, it's the eve of my 18th birthday. In my mind, this is huge. I'm leaping into adulthood and leaving childhood behind. And that is kind of unusually scary. But so is this. And you very rarely get the chance to do something as physically dramatic as it feels internally. But here I am. So I might as well give it a go. So as we're setting up the rigging, I'm with these just badass people, and they keep giving me advice. Oh, you should just do it. You're going to regret it if you don't. But no pressure. Don't do it if you don't want. But if you do, don't shit your pants. I'm told that a lot, actually. Have fun out there, kid. Don't shit your pants. So I'm going to the bathroom for about the 7th time. That's peeing. And I'm shaking. I'm trying not to seem too nervous, but I'm extremely nervous. kind of rightfully so. The drop that I would be doing is about 250 feet, and another about 100 feet to the ground. You jump, you swing out on the rope, and you fall that 250 feet, which is a really, really long ways. I don't know if I have to say that. It looks really far, and it feels really far. But I know I have to do it. And so they tell me I've got about 5 minutes. They're setting up the rigging. They're pulling back up the rope. Someone has jumped before me. She sounded like she had a lot of fun. So they're setting it up. My Aunt Sonia is going through all the rules with me. You have to jump off there, not there. That way you could hit another cliff. That would be very bad. Jump there and run. Make sure you jump. That's very important. Also, hands can't touch the rope. That would also hurt you very bad. Whew, okay. So she continues walking me through the rules. She tells me how I'm supposed to rappel down once I've hit the bottom, or hit the bottom of the rope, that is. And I was like, okay. And then the very last thing, okay, kid, just have fun. Don't shit your pants. Okay, yeah. Important advice. So I take a really deep breath, and I try and look as relaxed as possible, even though every fiber of my being is telling me, do not jump off this cliff. But I really want to, so I do. And I ask, are you sure? Is this good? And Sonia tells me it's safe. And so I tell my feet to start moving. And they do. And they move, and they get to the edge of the cliff, and they jump. And there's air everywhere. My stomach's up top. There's yells of approval from the cliffs above. There's also really loud yelling that I realize is coming from myself. I'm having the time of my life. This is incredible. I'm having so much fun. And it feels like forever. I'm just looking down at the red rock beneath me, and it's swooping and swooping, and I just feel euphoric, and I feel so happy and so accomplished for actually making myself jump. But eventually, the static ropes, or dynamic ropes from above, catch me. They've got a little give in them, luckily, so it's surprising, but it doesn't hurt. I jolt a little. I've swung across the canyon, and I start swinging, and I can see the tiny people who were just my size a minute ago from the canyon just yelling and giving me thumbs up. And I see another person below me, also pretty excited. But eventually I start to stop swinging. And I think, wow, I'm just euphoric. I feel so happy. But then I remember that I'm supposed to remember how to get down. I don't. So even though I did this really badass thing, I think, well, I've got to ask, which is pretty uncool, but it's a little bit risky. I can't just start tugging on these things because the ground is 100 at least feet below me. So I suck in my pride a little bit, and I holler below me because that's less intimidating. I say, how do I get down? And she's nice enough to tell me. And so I start to rappel down, and I just feel so contented and so alive. I'm grinning ear to ear, I'm sure, and I just feel so ready, and kind of clumsily, but surely, my feet hit the ground. Thank you.
John Schneeberger lives in the Bitterroot with his wife of 35 years, Karen Coombs. He is employed providing small business assistance with the local economic development authority. He has 3 adult children who are all splendid human beings. He is often politically active, likes hiking, skiing, and doing landscape pastel paintings. Please welcome John Schneeberger.
Okay. Hi. This is true. In 1980, I was on a thinning crew up Highway 12 with my friend Joe. Now, I enjoyed cutting down trees. The Forest Service had taught me how to cut down trees, and I thought I was pretty good at it. Also on the thinning crew was Joe's friend Jerry, and Jerry owned a beautiful handmade cedar canoe. Now, if you continue up Highway 12, you'll go over Lolo Pass and down into Idaho, and you'll come to the Lochsa River. And Highway 12 follows the Lochsa River for about 80 miles, and it's some rough country. As a matter of fact, it almost ended the Lewis and Clark expedition. They got waylaid by the extreme terrain. They had to eat some of their horses. No horses get eaten in this story. The Lochsa is now well known as a famous destination whitewater rafting area. It's also very popular, it's also very popular for its hot springs, including Jerry Johnson Hot Springs. And so in late June, early July, on a high water year, Joe suggests we go car camping over on the Lochsa. And when Joe's friend Jerry heard that Joe wanted to take his cedar canoe, he thought that was a bad idea. He said, "That's a rough river. It can be done. I've seen it done. It's a fast, maneuverable canoe. You can dodge through those rapids, but you got to be a good canoeist. Are you a good canoeist?" I said, "Am I a good canoeist? I have a merit badge in canoeing." I had gotten a merit badge when I was 12 on a lake in Missouri. I knew my J-stroke and my draw, and I knew how to rudder. Oh, I was ready for all of this, you know? I'd been down the Merrimack, Class 1 rapids. I've been down the Current River. I knew that when you go hit the rapids, Class 1 rapids, you go straight down the V, right down the middle of the river. Ha ha, yeah. And so off we went to the Lochsa, and it was me and Joe and Joe's 4-year-old son. Now you're thinking, canoe, Lochsa, crazy. Now you're thinking, canoe, Lochsa, 4-year-old son, batshit crazy. But this is 1980, and so there were a lot less warning labels on Montana back then. So we set in just below Jerry Johnson Hot Springs, about a mile down, and we surveyed to look for a flat spot. We were going to just take a short excursion. We were clueless, but not completely clueless. We were wearing t-shirts and shorts, and we had 3 life jackets. We put one on Bob, and we threw the other 2 in. Joe and I didn't wear them because this was 1980 and we were men. And so we started down the river, and holy guacamole, Chester, this was not the Current River. And it was thrilling. It was probably the most thrilling 3 minutes of my life. It was absolutely very exciting. And I immediately was trying to paddle over to the highway side of the river when the next rapids came up, and I didn't want to get the canoe sideways in those rapids, so I went down the V, and the bow of the canoe went up and then down and then up, and then the bow of the canoe dived into the water, and the canoe slips out from under us. Joe reaches around and grabs little Bob. I grab both of them. We paddle like crazy to the nearest shore. And there we are, looking across the Lochsa River at the highway. Not swimming across that. Joe wasn't a strong swimmer. I had a merit badge in swimming. So the only thing to do is walk up the river. But just like Lewis and Clark, we got waylaid. There's no shore. There's big boulders. We're having to bring Bob along with us. And obviously, and then, don't forget Bob. And so it's about dark. Now we started at noon and it's getting dark, right? And we know we're at Jerry Johnson Hot Springs. And we knew that we had to cross Warm Springs Creek. And we thought we'd just wade across it. And when we got there, it's 60 feet wide and all white. And that's between us and the bridge. And by this time, I'm a little harried, and I'm just, running on adrenaline, and I was going to prove that we could wade across that river. And so luckily, Jerry gave me his car keys, and I proceeded to wade across the river, and it was a huge current, and by the time it got to my knees, it just swept me down the river. And I was tumbling in the river, and it was white, and then I can remember distinctly seeing the sky, and then white, and then the sky, and people ask whether I had that, you're going to die experience, but it was 38 years ago, I was 23 years old. Just to say, I was highly motivated to get out of that creek. Made it across the creek, looked across at Joe and Bob. Obviously, plan one did not work, waiting. So I was in search of a chainsaw at that point. My mission was to get a chainsaw. I had a really good idea, a good 23-year-old idea. And I drove, somebody was going up to Jerry Johnson, I got in the car, I went up to Powell Ranger Station, and I happened to find, by the grace of God, a couple of firefighters there, who were fairly experienced, also 20-somethings though. I told them the story, and he said, what do you think we ought to do? I said, we need to drop a tree across Warm Springs Creek. And so off we went with all of our gear. They followed me down there. True story, true story. I was fully intending to cut down the tree myself, the biggest tree I'd ever cut down, but luckily when I reached for the chainsaw, the sawyer said, no, we got this, just move your friends upstream. And we proceeded to find a 3-foot in diameter Doug fir, chest height diameter, and he cut that down. And it was beautiful, did a beautiful job of that. And the Warm Springs Creek flushed that tree down the river. 10 tons of tree disappeared. You now see what I just crossed earlier in the evening. So we had a huddle, a bunch of 20-somethings came up with another 20-something idea. A bigger tree. We took a 4-foot diameter Doug fir that was probably big when Lewis and Clark were eating their horses in the 18th century. And he did a marvelous job of cutting this down. And it held on both sides. The trunk was out of the water. And the true hero of the story, the Forest Service guy went across with his Pulaski, chopping off the limbs, and he had his rescue webbing and secured the folks over on the other side, brought them across. Safety, relief, lots of hugs all around, as relieved as I'm going to be after this terrifying experience. And we got back in the car. It was midnight. And Joe, he was very thankful, but he said, couldn't you just taken a sleeping bag and stuck some matches in it and flung it across the creek? And I said, well, that's speculative. Instead of dropping trees across the creek, we could have thrown sleeping bags in the creek all night, and I doubt that the creek would have been impressed either way. But what we were sad about was the fact that we sacrificed 2 huge trees to our dumb asses. And what's also true is that now if you go up Warm Springs Creek, the creek that we had trouble crossing there, you go up 2 miles, you come to Jerry Johnson's Hot Springs. If you go up another 2 miles, back then and still today, you will find a very well-built bridge. Thank you.
Nerma Dobričanin is a mother of 2 little girls and a teacher at the secondary vocational school in her hometown of Rožaje, Montenegro. I had to look it up too. It means Black Mountain, and it's a sovereign state in southeastern Europe, the youngest state in what was once Yugoslavia. Nerma has been teaching English for 11 years. She loves to play volleyball and is passionate about traveling. One of her childhood dreams had been to visit the United States, which has finally come true with the study of the United States Institute on Secondary Education through the University of Montana. Please welcome Nerma Dobričanin.
Hi. Well, one of the biggest dilemmas I have ever had in my life was whether to come here or not. Because it was really hard for me to leave my two little girls for 5 weeks, and it's still hard. But eagerness to come to visit the USA and to learn more about its culture, people, customs and everything was so strong, so I decided to come anyway, as you can see. So after 24-hour-long journey, flight, which wasn't very comfortable because the space was too small, I couldn't sleep at all. And at the same time, I'm so scared of flying. And it's just not the fear that I was going to die in the plane. I felt really responsible for my 2 little girls, as well as for my unborn child. So I was constantly scared, anxious, nervous. My palms were constantly sweating. I could hear my heartbeat, and it wasn't pleasant at all. So finally, we landed. How happy I was to be in Missoula. But then again, Missoula? Wait, where the hell am I? I have never heard about Missoula before. I found out that I was going to participate in this program. So I felt like I was lost. I was at least 10,000 miles away from my home and from my family, and I was alone. And then I saw my coordinator. I was so happy to see her. But she only helped me lodging and settle, and she went. I was alone in my room. And when I say alone, it means alone not just in the room, but also in the whole building where we were staying, because I came a day earlier before all other participants. So I was a bit scared. That awkward silence was killing me. I looked through the window, and there were no people around. Usually you can see people in my country. That was something about the midnight. But here, there was nobody, not even a car to go past. I was thinking, what? Is this Resident Evil, or where am I? So, but it was really hard for me at that moment. I wanted to call my family to see if they're okay and to say that I was fine. And when I reached my phone, I saw that the battery was dead. Okay, I will recharge it, but then the plug was not the same as those in Europe. So, dead phone, all alone, 10,000 miles away from home, without any people, nor in building or around. So, at that moment, I felt desperate. I started crying. And I was also feeling hungry as I was pregnant. So I was waiting for morning. And finally, morning came. I wanted to go to look around and to see if there is any place where I could find something to eat. But I was walking and walking and walking, and I didn't see anyone, because during this time campus is empty. There are no students, there is nobody. So I was wondering, God, please help, do something. And then finally, in the distance, I saw a lady with hiking sticks. Thank you, God. I went there, and I said, excuse me, do you know if there is any nice place to eat here, somewhere nearby? And then she told me, if you come to my house, I will take car and I'll take you there. Well, at that moment, after the stress I had, the only thing that crossed my mind was those American films I watched with serial killers and people having victims in their basements and a lot of different stuff. So I was like, I don't know. But then I looked into her eyes, her transparent blue eyes, and somehow I felt that Marge was lonely as I was, and I felt some harmony and immediate connection with her. And I told myself, yes, she was sent by God. Go with her, go to her house. And we went there. As soon as I entered the house, I saw many prayers on the table. It was kind of relief for me. And I felt like safe and a lot better than the previous night. And she took her car. And when we started driving toward downtown, she kind of went to freeway, and I was wondering, where are we going? But I saw at some point that she's going downtown. She actually wanted to take me to her favorite place to eat. So we came there, and she took me through the town. She showed me around. She took me to her favorite place. We were having lunch together, and I couldn't believe how kind she was, how she helped me to fulfill that emptiness and that feeling of loneliness that was really strong. But not just her, people are so kind here in Missoula. As we were walking through, I couldn't believe that so many people want to speak to strangers. They want to show them around. They're eager to know about you. They're asking you questions. They offer you to help with anything. So that Resident Evil town from last night, actually, with the daylight, became something a lot more beautiful than I expected. And I was like, I'm not in that story anymore. I'm to a completely different story, like a fairy tale. So I would really like to thank you, Missoulian people, to thank Marge for everything. Thank you.